That is Rex Walters joining us this morning here on the DA Show. Rex, good morning.
DA, what's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, buddy. Thanks so much for joining us. And, you know, when we talk about this series, I don't know if there's much more the Cavaliers can get out of Rodney Hood, but at least they're going to try. What do you think Hood could bring to the table?
Well, he gives you length. He gives you another scorer. I mean, the bottom line is LeBron needs help. He needs either Smith, J.R. Smith, Kyle Korver, now Rodney Hood. Obviously, you know, Jordan Clarkson's had a tough go, so you have to give Rodney Hood a shot to create some offense, make open shots, attack closeouts, give him more of a boost. I mean, a lot of the passes that LeBron's making, he's making good plays. It's not leading to made jump shots. Bottom line is you're going to have to make jump shots to keep Golden State out of transition.
One of the great mysteries has been why has Hood's butt been stapled to the bench? Why has Ty Lue been so resistant in using him up until now?
Well, he's really struggled, obviously. And then you had the whole issue with not going in the game at the end. It's a different role for him. It's a different role than Utah. Obviously, Crowder struggled with it when he came over from Boston. People always talk about how great it is to play with LeBron, and it is. But at the end of the day, it's a different style. It's a different way to play. LeBron has the ball in his hands an awful lot, and you've got to be ready. It's very similar when Michael made a pass to you, you better make the jump shot. And it's very similar. So a lot of guys have a difficult time making that adjustment.
Do you think that difficulty in playing alongside LeBron is why Kyrie eventually became uncomfortable?
Well, I think Kyrie just, at the end of the day, wanted to be Batman instead of being Robin. He wanted the ball in his hands. He sees himself as an elite player, and he didn't want to be known as Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen had no problem with it. Kyrie obviously did. He wanted to see how far he could take a team. Obviously, Boston was very good, but he didn't get a chance to totally prove it. And I think that had a lot to do with why Kyrie left. It really wasn't anything more than that. He wanted to see if he could carry a team on his own.
Rex Walters joins us, Pistons assistant coach. Isn't that kind of ironic that Kyrie wanted to be Batman instead of Robin, and he joins one of the deepest, most talented teams in the NBA? I mean, is it going to be hard to be Batman when you have Gordon Hayward, Al Horford, Jason Tatum looks like a star, Jaylen Brown could be a star? Is it going to be hard to be Batman amongst all those players?
I don't think so. I think it makes him actually more powerful as a player, because now when he does receive double teams, when he does draw the big for rim protection, he's going to have kicks and plays that he can make to other people. But the bottom line is he brings the ball up a majority of the time. The offense is going to be really centered around him making plays, and he's got really, really good players around him. So I don't think so. I think it's a great situation for Kyrie, something that they have a legitimate chance of obviously knocking off Cleveland. It gets even better if LeBron goes somewhere else.
My guess is you will be very hesitant to criticize any coaching decisions, but end of game one, end of regulation, Ty Lue has a timeout. They do not use it. LeBron come to the sideline, and he is devastated, crestfallen, crushed that they did not utilize that timeout. Would you have utilized the timeout?
Well, the one thing I'll say is you're gonna have to run across the court, get on the television screen, and run the risk of getting a technical, which probably is not going to be called. But in that situation, when J.R. – and here's the thing. I think everybody watching the game, it's easy to criticize Ty Lue. It's easy to criticize LeBron. It's easy to criticize a lot of people. The bottom line is when you get a rebound inside of 5 feet, you have a shot to win the game. You have a shot to hit a three. Everyone expected JR to make a play. It was more like a shock thing that it's hard to blame Ty, but obviously timeout, time and score always needs to be covered, and players always have to be aware. And coaches get a lot of blame at the end of the day, though. Players also have to know those three things.
Well, that's the thing. I don't see how you can blame Ty Lue, LeBron, or anybody else for not telling JR, hey, this is the score. There's a Jumbotron hanging above you. There's ribbon boards and scoreboards. I mean, does that go on in huddles of coaches reminding players what the score is?
Well, I've been in those situations, and I've had a player call a timeout when there was no timeout to be called. And I think good coaches take the blame, and I'm not saying Ty should. The bottom line is it wasn't like they were just going into that situation right? Where, and here's the other thing, you don't say to JR, hey, if George misses a shot, right, we got to get another shot up. Like you're talking about, hey, we're going to make this free throw. We're going to be up with 4.7 seconds up. They're going to call a timeout, and then you can go over things. In that situation, you're not talking about anything negative as a coach, as players on the free throw line. You're not talking about someone missing a free throw. So, but as a player, you've got to look up. You've got to look at the scoreboard, see the score. You've got to look at the scoreboard, see the time, and you have to know in your mind, this is how many timeouts I have. But the bottom line is J.R. Smith needed to rebound that basketball and make a play. He needed to know time and score.
That's right. Rex Walters joins us, Pistons assistant coach, played in the NBA for a number of years throughout the 90s, also head coach at FAU and San Francisco. I think listeners are going to be interested when you just said, if you're in a huddle as a coach, you don't plan for the negative. You don't plan for George Hill to miss the free throw. But should you? I mean, shouldn't all situations be gone over in a timeout?
In a timeout, I think you've got to go over as many situations as possible. You have to make sure, number one, your team is organized and understands the situation, right? So if a timeout is being called, you're talking about, okay, hey, we're up 2, we're up 3, we're up 1, whatever, we're down 2. You got to go over all those situations and what we're trying to get accomplished in that possession. So, yes, I mean, you do. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to talk about matchups. You've got to talk about timeouts. There's a lot to cover, especially when you're talking about the most powerful offensive team that probably we've seen in the last, since Showtime Lakers. So there's a lot of things you have to cover. It's a difficult job, but it's, big boy basketball.
Does Steve Kerr have an easy job because there's so much talent, and talent almost always wins the NBA, or a difficult job because there's so much talent?
Well, obviously, it's nearly impossible to coach when you don't have talent. It doesn't matter how good the X's O's are. If the Jimmys and Joes aren't very good, your job's going to be really tough. Saying that, you have to manage egos. You have to make sure the ball gets to where it needs to get to. You've got to get guys to buy in on the defensive end, to defend at a high level, to rebound at a high level, and then obviously share the basket. It's not an easy job. Granted, it's a lot more fun when you have a lot more options. He's got 3 great options offensively. He's got a great facilitator in Draymond Green, and then he's got really good role players. And obviously, if they get Iguodala tonight, it makes it that much more fun as a coach.
Do you think Steve Kerr would be successful if he was coaching the Magic or the Suns?
You wouldn't hear about him. We wouldn't care about his political views as much. He wouldn't be nearly as funny or as good looking. Okay? The bottom line is you got to have great players in this league. You got to have great players in college. You got to have, as a college coach, which I did for 10 years, you got to have pros. If you do that, the sun shines brighter, the food tastes better, you're funnier, you're better looking. So bottom line is you got to have players.
This Bryan Colangelo story is too weird. It is too crazy, but I think about it from a coach's standpoint. There was information that got out about Jahlil Okafor's physical, about Nerlens Noel's attitude towards coaching, towards Joel Embiid's leadership. And as a coach, you've got to be pretty uncomfortable when that information goes out. If you're Brett Brown, can you feel comfortable in that relationship, whether that was Bryan Colangelo or not that tweeted it? Can you feel comfortable in that situation ever again?
It makes it really, really difficult. Obviously, Bryan Colangelo is a great GM, has done great work wherever he's been. So it's difficult, as an NBA player and coach, that makes it very difficult for me to criticize him. Saying that, and I have a world of respect for the job he's always done, you got to have respect, trust, and commitment. And if there's anything leading up to or showing that he is in any way responsible for this, that is broken, right? That is broken in Philadelphia. That doesn't mean he can never do it again. I think people learn from their mistakes. Lord knows I've made many mistakes along the way. But the bottom line is that situation, it would make it very, very difficult for the organization to keep him there.
Final question, Rex. When it comes to the Golden State Warriors, at times it has felt like they have not been hitting on all cylinders. Do you think that has to do with apathy or going on cruise control because they're so good? Or do you think it's fatigue having played this deep into 4 straight NBA finals?
I think you're on the right page with all of those things. There is apathy. They are the best team. They know every time they step on the floor, we've got 3 of the top 4 players. And really, there's only one team where they can say, hey, we only have 3 of the top 4, you know. So at the end of the day, that makes you a little apathetic. They've gone through the grind of 90, 100-plus games for the last 4 years. They've heard Steve Kerr, and I'm not saying they're getting tired of it. I've been to Steve Kerr's practice. He runs great practices. It's loose, yet it's fun, yet it's organized, right? But at the end of the day, you've been hearing the same voice for 4 years, with the exception of Kevin Durant. So all those things come into play. So that's why it's so hard to repeat, to win 3 out of 4. You're fighting a lot of different things that go way beyond the X's and O's of basketball.
Rex Walters, Pistons assistant coach, played in the NBA for nearly a decade, also a longtime head coach in college basketball, joining us this morning on the show. Rex, this was a lot of fun, man. Great stuff. How about we do it again?
I'd love that. I love it. Love talking basketball. I appreciate you having me. It's going to be a great game tonight. We should all be fired up.
All right. Right on, Rex. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Okay, bud.